Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, and Two Women Talking will return next week if it gets recorded. Big if, but I'm scheduled to record it today. But I want to talk about the Last of Us adaptation. There will be some spoilers, but not many, because I want to talk about how the show there were some minor-ish changes earlier in this season. But the most recent episode, they're really, really starting to deviate, and it's all good. It's all good. So let me say help support this channel. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK, and a couple bucks with, the shit that inevitably comes when you say anything positive about something that is woke. Yeah, fuck it. I've got my cell phone on the wire. That's no good. I may have had some interference. Okay, fixed it. But yeah, now that the thing no one was looking forward to has gone, Joel's death, we're moving into the mess that is that second game. And they have started to clean up the mess in very meaningful ways. They have given Dina a character other than Jewish bisexual stereotype. They have given her and Ellie's relationship some time to breathe. In the game, it was like they were just Randy, and so they hooked up, and all of a sudden, insta-family. In the show, they're doing more to actually build a relationship. And it works for me. Obviously, that kind of stuff is not going to work for everybody. I know some people didn't like Bella Ramsey's casting, but I do think that the way it's worked, and I mean, people didn't complain nearly as much about Pedro Pascal being cast as Joel, but his Joel was very different from the game. In the games, Joel is a very closed book. He's almost a noir character. You have to sort of infer what's going on with him from like grunts and little moments. Whereas TV show Joel talks more, expresses how he's feeling more. He's much more knowable. Ellie, on the other hand, is sort of believably deer in the headlights in moments. The world is more recovered in the show than it is in the game. They've got more technologies back. Their power's not constantly getting shut down. They have a semblance of modern hospitals. So Ellie and Dina being kind of, randy teens feels less out of place than it did in the game, where they're literally smoking weed and having sex when they're supposed to be out on anti-mushroom zombie patrols. One of the things they have done in the show is use fewer of the full-blown cordyceps zombie characters and more of what are they called? The stalkers in the game. So they have to spend less on zombie makeup so they can have more zombies, which I feel bad for Days Gone every time they do one of those big zombie hordes, because that is a Days Gone thing, not a Last of Us thing. And Days Gone really deserved a sequel and didn't get it. So, maybe fingers crossed, there's still hope it might come back, but I would have much preferred a Days Gone show to a Last of Us show but Last of Us is drama and terrible people being terrible to each other, and that's what gets on premium cable now. But they have, like, made Ellie less terrible. And Abby's barely been in it yet. She showed up, killed Joel, left. It's been very much Ellie and Dina doing something very ill-advised. But we also got more of the world building. I mean, this was in the game, the war between, the WLF and the Seraphites, the Scars. It's in the game. But they set it up better in the show. The show is relying less on mystery and less on dragging out the frustration and the what the fuck is going on, who are these people. And they cast Jeffrey Wright as Isaac. Now, I will see everything Jeffrey Wright is in. He is a spectacular actor. But they give some backstory to Isaac. And, in the game, Isaac was this frustrating figure because he made some utterly stupid calls from a, tactical military perspective. But in the game, they show more of his character. And so it's like, yeah, this is a guy who might possibly make a call he knows is not strategically smart, but is important personally because he is just burning with rage and also expensive copper cookware. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. That whole thing was not in the game at all. The whole reveal of Dina's pregnancy is completely different in the show, and it's much better. Dina did some absolutely irresponsible things that just made you not be able to stand her. And Ellie was so just angry in the game that you felt like, the spirit had been crushed out of that bright light little kid that was in the first game. There's more of game one Ellie in adult Ellie in The Last of Us. And I think that's also because, there's actually emotional bonds that she's forming instead of just, screwing the only bisexual girl anywhere near Wyoming. A lot of that stuff was just so poorly done. It was very, I am important, mid 2010s, shoving it in your face, false progressivism. And I think the show rightly goes, okay, that sucked. We have to make changes. We have to adapt it so it's actually good storytelling. And so the most interesting thing to me about season 2 is the bones they throw Neil Druckmann, I'm totally speculating here. I don't know. But the show looks like they put in completely recreated scenes from the game to keep him as quiet as possible and minimize the tantrums about changes they made, because they do the entire blinking acoustic guitar scene. And I was actually screaming at my screen in pain because it's not as painful as it is in the game, just because the game does not stop to watch a folk music video. It's still TV. We're only watching the whole time. But I don't know. I've never been one of those, oh, the person with the guitar is so dreamy types. So I don't get that it's like lesbian girls learn to play the guitar kind of thing. That's very much a time capsule of the game, because at that point, the cool thing for Not Like Other Girls to do was learn the guitar, right? Even though it was a Taylor Swift thing. It was like a counterculture, but totally acceptable thing. And maybe that's why I couldn't stand it. But now they much more clearly connect Ellie playing the guitar, which she's not as good at, the guitar playing and the singing in the show as she is in the game, which actually works because in the show, it's more of an emotional connection to Joel than I am a girl with a guitar, I'm singing acoustically. Like, oh, I'm too cynical for that stuff to work on me. But it does sort of work as okay, they gave him this scene. They gave him the dance scene because they had to fix a lot of his thematic and dramatic elements. And I actually think that the show is setting up the themes that they were attempting in the game, which was just a complete freaking mess. I can see now why Ellie choosing to go all that way, take on Abby, and eventually go, no, it's not worth it. I'm not going to do that. I can see how they're setting it up better in the show. The game, no. Abby's repulsive and dangerous. And I finished the game thinking it's probably bad to leave her alive because she just got away with it. So the next person who wrongs her, she's going to kill in horrible fashion too. But the big question mark is still Lev, the trans boy who's in a cult, who in the game kills his own mother. If they put that character on the HBO show as is, oh Lord, just the fact that the trans character is also a member of this cult, and I mean, for people who don't know, The Last of Us 2 is supposed to be the Israel-Palestine conflict in the West Bank with the serial numbers filed off. The kidnapping and release of Gilad Shalit was supposedly a big inspiration to Neil Druckmann, that aged on the left like milk on a hot summer day. But they've definitely set up how they've set up. You don't need to know that in the show to go, Isaac started the WLFs with some other people because Fedra were fascist but also not hardcore enough. And I never got from the game where the WLF fit. And to me, it's sort of, that's those really, really mental, violent, like West Bank settlers who are, the recent Israeli government decided it was a great idea to let them just be a militia out there. That had not happened when the original The Last of Us 2 was out. But, it's very clear they're sort of going with that, but also some of these U.S. militia groups, but also they've blended a bunch of things quite nicely together. And then you have the Scars, the Seraphites, who have much inferior technology, but superior numbers, and they're winning the hearts and minds war. Not fucking subtle at all. And when I first found out the inspiration for this game, I was like, what? You made the Palestinian people into a cult? Like, what? like poor taste all around, right? But it's both these sides are disgusting, which you can't get away with if you do like a 1-to-1 Israel-Palestine thing anymore. Everybody will just hate you for that because people are so divided on that. So they made it more of an American thing and just sort of did like a Far Cry 4 thing. You know, where one is like, oh, super modern, but she wants to turn the island, what was it, Kirat? It wasn't an island, yeah, it was like a mountain valley, but into a narco state for fun and profit. And so, yeah, she sucked. And then you had her brother, who seemed like, you know, this traditionalist mystic, but yeah, he was pro-child marriage, so he sucked too, right? And so they made everybody so disgusting that I think they're going to kind of go with Abby being more of a product of her environment than anything, actually lean into the fact that she was fucked up by the way she was raised. And is she still, I mean, okay, she's not She-Hulk anymore, so it's different. But you know, they've nerfed her enough that you don't believe that letting her go is just a terrible idea that will result in a string of bodies. But, you know, also, you can also believe that she's a product of her environment capable of change. And I didn't get either of those things from the game. So good job, HBO. Like I said, the big question mark going forward, one, are they gonna have Ellie kill dogs and pregnant women along the way? We'll see. That character is just gone. Now, we haven't seen her since Abby goes golfing scene. Mel, I think her name is. But then it's also the question of what are they gonna do with Lev? And I am expecting a somewhat nerfed version of that character's arc. I think that they will probably take out the killing his mom. They'll just have him run away. And maybe, you know, maybe the mom will die, but it'll be like an accident, like slipping on the knife or something. He tries to pull it away from her and ends up, you know, stabbing her in the gut or something. Like more accidental than like straight up killing her. 'Cause the self-defense deal, I think, is still not enough of a thing with the way trans people are being treated as inherent threats to bathroom safety. You know, I hope HBO, and maybe they will. Maybe they lost that fight. Druckmann threw too much of a tantrum, or maybe they don't see the problem. But people are going to lose their shit over that character no matter what happens, just because, you know, trans person in a creepy cult and, you know, the transphobic groups. Oh no, sorry, women's safety groups. Already see gender ideology as a cult in itself, so they're going to feel validated. It didn't age well. A lot of the things in that game just did not age well. They weren't okay at the time, but they were considered cool at the time. Never do that. Never do something edgy. It always ends badly. If you're doing something to make a point, if you're doing something to examine something artistically, cool. Don't just do it to be edgy. Don't just do it to create this cheap emotional moment. It always ages poorly. You know, have a reason other than rule of cool, because there's too many different kinds of cool. And unfortunately, if you're just, it's cool, you end up landing on no type of cool at all, because you tried too hard to just be cool. But yeah, the show has convinced me that it might be able to thread this needle of staying reasonably true to the game while still fixing the worst elements of its indulgences. And then things that were just patently irresponsible and exploitative. Like Ellie and Dina's, when they finally get together, it's not a gratuitous shot of Dina's underwear. Right? Like it's actually about their relationship and feelings and them coming together. Everything it wasn't in the game. It felt exploitative in the game. And, if it weren't at the time, left-wing darling, that game probably would have taken more crap for, the sexual objectification of its leads and the various other, stereotypes it leaned into and just really toxic shit. And I mean, HBO is not known to shy away from toxic shit. Game of Thrones. And oh my God, okay, the Game of Thrones. Everybody was saying, oh my God, this show's Game of Thrones, because the whole zombie horde was exactly like the fucking White Walkers and the Wall in Game of... It was HBO pandering to HBO viewers. And I found that a bit silly. There's been something in every episode I felt kind of silly. But I do think that this show is making a lot of compromises. It's doing much better, I think, holding people after killing off a major character in utterly brutal and sort of nonsensical fashion. Because now you have Ellie and Dina to be invested in. It's heads and shoulders in terms of, like, just straight up narrative. Head and shoulders better in the game. And that's not because TV is a superior medium. It's not. It's an inferior storytelling medium, as far as I'm concerned. The story is just coherent and knows where it's going and knows how to prime people to accept what's coming instead of trying to manipulate someone into being forced to like someone they are never going to be able to stand. The problem with the game was that it forced you to spend time with Abby to try to force you to relate to her and like her, instead of letting you hate her. And if she redeems herself in your eyes, that's going to happen over time. The show seems to understand that and is doing a lot better on that score. So I have hope. Let's see how it shakes out. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone can use it but can't afford it. Your support is greatly appreciated and very, very important. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.